Good evening. It is March 4th. It is March 2024. My goodness, my goodness. Welcome to Scouching Live. Tonight, I am unfortunately once again not joined by my host, Mr. Sam McGilligan. He is off having some sort of Sam McGilligan adventure in his life that involves his car and some other stuff, and his phone died today on all kinds of crazy things that have put him out of commission today. But I am joined by producer AJ Jadaro. How are you, sir? How was your weekend? How are you feeling?
Happy birthday, Dad. But yeah,
It's my dad's birthday tomorrow.
Oh, that's cool.
Look at that.
That's
look
something.
at that.
That's something we both didn't know about each other.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I skipped my dad's birthday to work on Hockey Night in Canada last year, and now I'm doing it again.
Well, you're skipping it to work for the next Hockey Night in Canada, which is this show, right?
Sure.
Exactly. We're going to the moon. We're going to the stars. We're going to the universe, whatever. I also saw Dune on the weekend, so if I make a lot of Dune references, that's where that comes from. But anyway, welcome to Scouching Live. We can get into the show. We got a big show today, and we got a big week coming, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. I am Will Scouch, though, as you probably know. We're brought to you by Fanatics. You can use our affiliate link below or scan the QR code to provide a kickback to the show and anything you buy in the store. We're also brought to you by Puck Preps Hockey for all your NCAA and CHL draft prospect needs. I just put together some USHL under the radar guys to keep an eye on that I've been watching over the course of the year. So stay tuned for those on that site in the coming days. Fractal Hockey Consulting also supports the show, which is my business for hand-tracked targeted player analysis and recruitment packages for the NCAA, Europe, and beyond. I will also take this moment to note that we partnered up with a tournament called the Golden Bucket Tournament, which is a tournament that is going on in Montreal in late May. I will be there. We're going to be doing a little talk about the European hockey landscape and what the perks are there. So if you are a player or a coach or something who is generally NCAA Division III or U Sports or Division I level, or like an overage CHL Junior A player, and you just kind of want some exposure to teams from all over Europe, that's a great way to do it. So if you want more details, DM me on Twitter or email Fractal Hockey at info@fractalhockey.com, and we'll help you get set up and get you registered and maybe send you to a really cool place in Europe, because there's teams from all over the continent coming to that tournament. And also, we're, of course, brought to you by Scouching.ca, where you can get exclusive access with a subscription to innovative data tools with tons of insight to draft prospects and players making their way into the NHL. So, this evening, we got some nice news that we're going to cover first, and Lindy Ruff being fired as the Devils head coach.
I don't know that that's such nice news.
Well, it's wild news. It's something.
It's nice in the sense that we get to talk about something.
It's something to talk about, because with the Devils this year, I get the feeling that there is a lot to talk about. We're also going to talk a bit more about the Pittsburgh Penguins and what's going on with them, and then we're going to go over some prep for the trade deadline. So we're going to go through that a little bit and what's been going on there, but also mostly just also cover some of the recent contracts that have been signed and a couple of the trades that have been coming in over the last week or so. Before we get into the content of the show, just because I want to fuel some questions here, the players tracked over the last week, took a look at, I'll try to go through them as quickly as possible. Christopher Thibodeau, Artyom Levshinov, Max Swanson, Ben Danford, Kuzma Voronin, Artemi Kuznetsov, Austin Baker, Andre Becker, those names are too similar, John Mustard, our boy John Mustard, Zeev Buium, Gennady Chali, who just committed to the University of Michigan, by the way. He decommitted from Vermont and is going to a much better school, so good for him. Harrison Brunicki, Eric Berger, Yegor Surin, Terrence Smith, Berkeley Catton. We like Berkeley Catton here. Lucas Fisher, Roman Lutsev, Liam Greentree, Tanner Howe, and Jamiro Reber. So that's it for that week in that world. So if you have any questions on those players, those are the ones that are freshest in my mind. But come at me with whatever you got and try my brain.
All right.
So anyway, yes,
the Devils.
Yeah, the Devils. So the Devils have fired Lindy Ruff, and they have hired Travis Green, former teammate of Tom Fitzgerald, general manager Tom Fitzgerald. So Lindy Ruff is now gone. He took over head coaching duties with the New Jersey Devils in 2020 during the offseason, and he was signed to a contract extension in October 2023, which is kind of wild. But his record with the Devils was 128, 125, and 28. And to say this season AJ has been a disappointment for the Devils and their fans, I would say is quite an understatement, even though they might not totally be dead yet.
Yeah.
They're in contention for the playoffs, but it is not looking super great.
Yeah, the way I kind of look at it is they've just had a lot of injuries all year, and their goaltending's not been great. Also, when you get rid, like, not to say that they moved on from Damon Severson, and and there's somebody else that I'm forgetting, but like a lot happened for this team, especially with the injuries to Timo Meier. Jack Hughes was out for an extended period of time twice, right? Nico Hischier was out at times. Dougie Hamilton's been out for quite a while. Like, I think it's stretching back to 2023. So much has gone wrong, and yet they're still in a decent position.
Yeah.
But like it's difficult. I really like this team. I thought this team was a true contender to start the year, and it just felt like everything went wrong.
Well, yeah, and I don't think it means like their team is destined to be perennially terrible. You also left out the most important thing here, that they acquired Curtis McDermott.
Oh,
I think you can't forget that they made themselves tougher to play against by going out and getting Curtis McDermott. Just so you know,
fantastic. You made me actually think that I forgot something massive.
I just can't.
Graves.
Yes,
Graves.
I just can't let you forget, because Curtis McDermott.
No, I forgot that Ryan Graves went out of the lineup. That's the one I actually forgot.
Well, that's okay. That's fine. I think we'll forgive you for that. But yeah, I mean, I think that the Devils, I mean, yeah, I agreed. I thought coming into the season, even I think you and I were talking about it before the year began, that like New Jersey was a team that very easily could take steps forward. And Jack Hughes started so hot this year. So it's,
I was looking at him as like a top 5 player at the start of the year, the way he came out. Like, I thought he'd really push for a spot as like that kind of player, just below that tier of 4 that I talk about, where you have McDavid up top, and then the next tier of Matthews, Makar, McKinnon. I thought Hughes might be a real contender for that 5th spot, and I still think he will be down the line. It's just, he hasn't got enough play time this year because of the injuries, and they've just been derailed by bad goaltending, let's face it.
Yeah.
I watched the Anaheim game against New Jersey, and New Jersey was pounding them. They were peppering them with shots, but every time, man, it's like goal would go in. I think it was Nico Dawes in that game. It's like whichever goalie they put in, it feels like it doesn't work.
No. And that's the age-old adage, right? Show me a bad coach and I'll show you a bad goaltender. Like, because the data, from what I could gather on the New Jersey Devils this year, at least, especially offensively, it's not bad. Like that Devils Ducks game on the first was they actually, I looked it up. The shots were 55-23 and they lost 4-3. It's, I don't know.
Yeah, and Jack Hughes had a penalty shot with 2 seconds left too.
Right.
Like that was insane. I'm like, okay, can he save this? Because I root for the Devils, like, as a side team. They're not my main team, but I really like them because I'm a big Jack Hughes guy. I'm like, please, dude. Please.
Yeah.
But no, it's just felt like, as I've said, everything's gone wrong. When you think about it too, like, they let go of Andrew Burnett so he could go to Nashville. And how awesome would Andrew Burnett be right now for New Jersey if they wanted to make the switch?
Yeah.
Like, I still think Lindy Ruff's a good coach. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a good coach. But I understand that from New Jersey's perspective, you look at it, they think they could still make the playoffs. It's a bit of a long shot. So maybe they're trying to get that new coach boost, so they could try and take advantage of that potentially. I still wouldn't have moved on from Lindy Ruff, but like I get the thought process behind it. It's just promoting Travis Green. We've seen what he's done before, and I'm always people can change my mind. I looked at Paul Maurice as a bad coach not too long ago, and he's really shut me up about that, and I profusely apologized, even though he has no knowledge of it. But still, it's like, I'm not confident in Travis Green.
Well, like that's the thing about coaching, though, is it's such a weird craft, and it is true that the coaching boost is a thing, but like the thing that I think you also have to have faith in rather than the coaching boost is, are the underlying numbers going to regress for New Jersey? Because they are worse than they should be, but a lot of that comes down to goaltending. But is the goaltending magically going to fix itself? Probably not, right? Like you're rolling out Akira Schmid, Vitek Vanacek, and Nico Dawes.
Yeah, and that's just not
and
good enough.
All of them are well below league average, especially Vanacek and Dawes. Nico Dawes, by the way, giving up 4 on 14 in that Ducks game to the Ducks, which is wild.
You know what it reminded me of, that game?
Yeah.
It reminded me of the Leafs versus Ducks game where because it was Lucas Dostal, where he made like 51 saves in that game against the Leafs.
Yeah.
And Anaheim led for most of the game, but the Leafs finally beat him and made it through. It felt like New Jersey just they beat him once, but the lead was insurmountable.
So yeah, I mean, that's the thing about this sport. It's kind of unforgiving, and results matter. Even though, I mean, I agree with you though. I'm not sure this was the right move, but sometimes the right move is kind of not what you need to do. And I don't know, maybe the players were frustrated with him. Maybe the team is just looking to shake things up, but to me, generally, when you just want to shake things up just because, and you can objectively show that it's probably not the coach's fault that your team is kind of behind where they want to be. Like, I don't know. I don't think that's outlandish to say that it's not necessarily Lindy Ruff's fault, because looking at their defending as well, like they're not great. Don't get me wrong, but they're also not like bleeding horrible chances against all night long, like the Oilers were kind of at the beginning of the year.
Right, but did you think that Jay Woodcroft was truly responsible for that?
No. That's what I'm saying. Like,
right,
it
but
wasn't.
Also, then Chris Knobloch came in, and look what he did. And I'm not saying
nothing.
No, he did a lot. Clearly, he changed up the rush approach, and that helped a lot. But still, oh god, it's 3-0. Anyways, in the Leafs game, because I also have that.
Just for the record, by the way, AJ said the Leafs are winning this game, no doubt.
This is slander. You cannot prove it. But
all right, well, fair enough.
You cannot prove it.
We'll let the public believe that. By the way, I just want to throw this out there before we move on from the Devils. Travis Green's record with the Vancouver Canucks: 133 wins, 147 losses, and 34 losses in overtime. So you're 133 wins and 181 losses. Not great. Lindy Ruff, significantly better with New Jersey through tough seasons for New Jersey too, it seems. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess this is just one option. The Devils, the thing that popped in my mind too when I heard this news was like, well, how different do the Devils look right now if they actually went through with the trade to get Jacob Markstrom out of Calgary? Like, does Jacob Markstrom and the stability that he could bring totally change the last, I don't know when the Markstrom rumors started, like 10, 15 games ago, maybe? Like, not super long ago, but a little while ago.
I think it was a little less in terms of like an actual deal materializing, but it could have, right?
But like, what if Jacob Markstrom is in net for that Ducks game and they win 3-1 or 3-2, right? Or 4-3 in overtime or something, right? Like,
or 2-1 because they couldn't score.
Whatever. Let's say that, like, who cares about the score? Let's say they win, right? Like, that's the thing that's weird to me too, because like I think we're both right where the Devils need a goaltender. They need someone who can reliably stop pucks at an average or better rate. And I feel like Jacob Markstrom could be that. And I don't know what happened with Calgary. It seems like they went to Markstrom to waive his no trade clause and then said, actually, you know what? We don't actually have the trade we want to make, so we're not going to move you. To me, that's not a great move, whatever. But if this happened, then the Devils probably look a lot better, and maybe Lindy Ruff still has a job. But, I mean, who knows if this is going to help? You can't really say one way or the other. The Devils, though, I mean, looking at the standings, they need to go on a hell of a run. If they're gonna make it, they are currently sitting, if I sort by wild card in the standings, I think they're sitting 8 points back of a playoff spot right now. 8 points back of Detroit and Tampa. Detroit, sorry.
What about Philly?
7 points back of the Philadelphia Flyers
with games in hand, right? Like I think they have 3 games in hand.
They have 1 on Philadelphia.
Oh, they have 1. Okay, so
and they have 2 on Tampa. So it's an uphill battle. Like that's a test. Like they're 4-6 in their last 10. I think they've got like 6 wins since February 1st. It hasn't been going great for New Jersey Devils fans. But I don't know, AJ, anything else you'd like to throw in here? Because I'm an open book on this. They probably are, to me, they're one of the more fascinating stories of the year. To me, the Devils are fascinating.
I wish they'd make the playoffs, but it's not going to happen at this point. And I feel bad for Jack Hughes more than anybody. Like, I looked at last year's result over the New York Rangers. I thought, okay, so they can build on this. And sometimes you take a step back to take 2 steps forward, and it seems like that could potentially be what's happening here. And it sucks, but I still believe in that group. I know Timo Meier's had a bad year, but he's looked a lot better recently. I think a lot of that's come down to injury. I do think Lindy Ruff did him a bit of a disservice in the way he deployed him. It's like you pay that much money for a guy that you've added for term. You need to be putting him on your top power play unit to put him in a good spot to be productive, because confidence matters. Even though you and I have a joke about how power play points don't count, they do, and they help with the confidence of players, even if it does happen when you're up a man. So to me, I think Timo Meier needs to be on that top power play. I understand, like, you brought in Tyler Toffoli, but you gave up Sharangovich for him, like, and it was only for 1 year. Like, if you're going to move anybody at the deadline, and I know they're looking to extend Toffoli, that should be the guy they do. I think it's a good idea to do that because they can probably get a decent return for him. Assets they could potentially use in a Markstrom trade later in the offseason if they can't get it done at the deadline. And you just got to get Timo Meier going. He's been a lot better recently, but please, second line top power play. None of this third line second power play stuff.
Right.
Like, that's the one criticism I have of Lindy Ruff that I can actually, because I've watched a bit, like some Devils games, but definitely not the same level of intensity that I've watched Leafs games at, because I watch every single Leafs game. But I look at them and I think, okay, you've put a lot of money into Timo, play him. And it's as simple as that, because he's good.
Right. Yeah. I mean, someone did mention that their top power play unit of Hughes, Heischer, Holt, Bratt, Toffoli is pretty hard to top. But either way.
Yeah, but you move on from Toffoli. You get some assets that you can maybe use in a Markstrom deal.
Yeah.
Because you're not sending Toffoli back to Calgary. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then you get Markstrom. You give Timo Meier better deployment. It helps free up a spot for Alex Holtz even to play up a little higher and get more ice time. And you can fix a lot of these problems. Or maybe you use Holtz in a Markstrom deal. Right? Yeah. Like, I think they got to move on from Toffoli, even though he's very good. I just think you can get a lot or a decent return for Toffoli and get Meier going.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough, especially when you got Curtis McDermott on your team now. Someone also did mention something interesting about the quote. The comment was, "You can't send Ruff out there tomorrow. It's unfair to him, and the fan base would kill him." Like, I don't disagree, but that's also very flawed thinking.
I don't agree with that at all, because do we not remember what happened at the beginning of last season where the Devils fans were chanting "Fire Lindy, Fire Lindy," like, and then they apologized to him because he led them to such a good season.
Don't get better. like all the numbers point to the fact that like this is not a bad team, but they're sunk by their goaltending and like the few weak defensemen they have. Like, that's the thing that's torpedoing their chances at a playoff spot. So does Travis Green come in and just automatically fix that? No, I don't think so. So, like, if the Devils do go on a magical run this year, then cool. But I'm a little more concerned about long-term there, because, like, you do have to fix that problem. But Lindy Ruff wasn't, unless Lindy Ruff was, like, putting poison in his goalie's breakfast cereal or something, then maybe Lindy Ruff is at fault. I doubt it, too. I doubt it as well. But you know, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's like, it's another example of like, they say that this sport is like the toughest out there. The toughest people play this sport. You have to be tough to play it. You have to be tough to work in it. But then it's like, oh, but the fans might boo him too much, so we're gonna fire him and then send him away and replace him with not some guy, Travis Green, but we're going to replace him and hope things get better, right? Like if things don't get better, then what are they going to do? Fire Travis Green because the fans are going to be arguably
Well, he's
more
interim.
mad?
He's interim, right? And they promoted
Right.
him. So
Right. But he's already on the bench. Like he was already there.
yeah.
He's been a head coach in the past. He's Tom Fitzgerald's former teammate. Let's not discount that they're boys. Like those guys know each other. They're boys. And it's hard to say no to one of your boys in the NHL. But
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Anyway.
But I think that's about as much as we can say, though.
Yeah.
It's sad. I want to see this team do better. Yeah. And hopefully they come back swinging next season.
Well, speaking of being in the dumps, the Pittsburgh Penguins have not necessarily had the last stretch of games that we were kind of thinking they maybe should have in order to guide the rest of their franchise. They're 5-7-1 since February 1st, and they are not sitting in a playoff spot, and they are 2 points behind the New Jersey Devils with 2 games in hand on them, but they are still 10 points, 9 points out of the playoff spot. It is not looking good. The Pittsburgh Penguins also, their last little run capped with a 4-3 loss over the Calgary Flames, where they absolutely blew it with 10 minutes left in the third period, giving up 2 quick ones, including was that the Nazem Kadri goal that was like the beautiful one that he scored this weekend? I feel like that was that one.
I'm not sure.
And where I forget, he scored a really beautiful goal this weekend, and it's slipping my mind who he played against. But then Sharon Govich with less than a minute left in the third, breaking the tie and icing it and sending the Pittsburgh Penguins home in a game where the Pittsburgh Penguins also outshot Calgary 30-20.
Yeah, that was a sad one for them.
Yeah, that one is a bit of a kick in the gut. I mean, but I guess in a sense, like this kind of paves the way for the Pittsburgh Penguins to move forward in the way that it seems like they have to move forward. Like the headline thing is that Jake Gensel, I would imagine, is getting traded now. They finished that game against Calgary, then they got killed by the Edmonton Oilers. They're just not on a good run. So I guess the writing is on the wall. I think
this weekend really sealed their season.
Yes.
Like there's a 5% chance that Gensel sticks around, but I think it's pretty imminent that he's going to be on his way out. And Pittsburgh, they're looking for players. They're looking for guys that are close to playing in the NHL at this point. Like they want prospects who are almost ready, if not ready to go. So one of the teams that to me makes the most sense here is the team we always throw into the mix because they're always super flexible and have just an abundance of assets always, and that's the Carolina Hurricanes. They generally don't trade for rentals. But could you see a situation where this year they go, screw it, Jake Gensel's available? And they didn't do that for Timo Meier, to be granted, or to be fair, rather. So
right.
I just think at some point, when do they go full send? Because they've got a lot of guys and a lot of picks stockpiled that they could do it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. If I'm the Carolina Hurricanes and thinking like how the Carolina Hurricanes probably think, because I seem to have been on the same wavelength as them for a number of years. I mean, I see why you don't go after rentals, and I think Carolina could be a team that comes out of nowhere for someone that doesn't even pop up on a radar somewhere right now.
What do you think about them with Booch even? Like that could be a move.
Like they could use another winger. Like right now, the
a goal
wingers
scorer,
are looking,
especially. Like that's what they really need.
And Natchez and Jarvis are great. They've got Teravainen. But then other than that, it's like Michael Bunting, Jesper Fast, Jordan Martinook. Like you can improve on that group. Like I like Michael Bunting as much as the next guy, but if you want to be a Stanley Cup contender, I feel like you're right. They have the assets to make a move. For Jake Gensel, like it would be fine, but if I'm Carolina, I'm going, no. Everyone's talking about Jake Gensel. The market's hot on him. We have a different person in mind. Who that is, I don't know. But if you're gonna dump out a bunch of your picks and prospects for something, I get the feeling that for Carolina, they might just kind of go for someone with term and go for because
right.
You know, who knows what the owner is thinking about this, right? Like Tom Dundon is a guy who seems to be a little bit more hands-on. With sort of what he wants the team to do with their cap space and their money and the money he's paying players. But I mean, yeah, I agree. Gensel could be a fit there.
I just look at
But
it
I
and
also
think about like they have. You're talking about a market forming around Jake Gensel. Nobody can pay what the Carolina Hurricanes can pay. Who's a buyer realistically? Like nobody has the
but
same level of assets. Like unless Boston's willing to move on from like I don't know. I don't even know if they have their first and like Fabian potentially, like Fabian Lysell. But I don't even think that would like Carolina just has a way could create a way more robust package.
I mean, yes, that's true.
That's more the way I look at it.
It
They
just
want
depends.
players. Like Pittsburgh is not looking for picks. They
No, it
want
just depends
prospects, and a
on
lot of
what,
these
like,
teams just don't have the cupboard to supply them with.
yeah, like yeah, it just depends on where, like, I'm just looking through this list of like prospects that I have by team who are on the older side, that could maybe jump in. I don't know, like, it's tough. I don't know the answer because you're right. Like, Gensel probably is worth quite a bit. Um, you know, you could do some sort of double retention thing with him, and that would put him down at $1.5 million. Uh, I mean, and I think that makes it so that a lot more teams could afford him. But yeah, if Pittsburgh doesn't want picks, then it does limit things quite a bit for me. Where it's like, well, okay, but it's like it really narrows the possibilities for them. Where it's like, well, okay, you don't want really young prospects, you don't want draft picks, but you're also, are you going to if you're trading Jake Gensel, you don't want veterans either, right? Like they're not looking to just get a bunch of vets for the team to play with the other
No,
vets.
they want
They want
what Carolina has, and that's
right.
why I think like at some level they just have an advantage on this potentially because the fact that they draft well, they don't spend often, and they could really go for it this year. And Carolina could win. They could absolutely win.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just poking through some of the better teams in the league that could afford him. There aren't that many. That's the thing too. Like there are more, like it's more solidified, like where the standings are. But I think I was listening to, I don't know if it was 32 Thoughts or something, but they were just talking about how little the teams at the top now have because they've been good for a number of years up to this point, and all they've done is traded all of their futures, right? Or you're Toronto, where they don't seem to be super interested in trading a bunch of futures at the moment. But like most other teams have been just moving picks and recklessly spending over the last few years because screw it. If you think you can win, you can win. But also when you have a situation like a Jake Gensel where it might actually be worth opening your wallets quite a bit, there's nothing really to spend. But you're not going to send Jake Gensel to a middling team, I would think.
The only way that happens is if a team can talk to him, right?
Right.
Like if you're trying to get a player like Jake Gensel, and let's say you're trying to just move up your timeline, that's possible if you want to re-sign him, and maybe you're not necessarily a big contender this year.
Yeah.
I just don't know who that would be necessarily, but
I mean,
like there's a possibility of that.
I doubt he gets traded within the division, but part of me wonders, are the Washington Capitals delusional enough to spend some of the assets they've accumulated
I
to go,
don't
maybe we
think
can
I
make
don't
the
think
playoffs?
so.
I don't think so.
Based on what I've heard from our best source, 32 Thoughts, Washington is looking to sell a little bit here.
Yeah.
They're looking at Noah Hannafin as a potential guy to trade for. So,
Right.
but Gensel's name was not in that mix.
How about this? Jake Gensel double retained, and somehow all that the Rangers give up is Matthew Rempe. How about that? The biggest superstar
Do
in
you
the
really
game.
think Kyle
You
Dubas
get
would
rid
do
of
that?
Matthew Rempe.
Do you really think
Hey.
Kyle Dubas would do that?
Maybe Dubas is on his new team. He's on a new team, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna do things different than when I was in Toronto. I'm gonna go the opposite, and I'm gonna go full bore into what they were trying to make me do for a number of years. And I'm just gonna go get this gigantic child to play instead of Jake Gensel.
Was Jake Gensel a Sault Ste. Marie Greyhound?
Oh, that's true.
Exactly.
I don't think so.
So
yeah.
no.
Yeah. No.
Oh wait,
like
I'm dumb.
I mean,
he's on this team.
you're right. Yeah. No. But I mean, the Rangers do kind of make sense, but they just have to make the money work. There would need to be a lot
So
of
wait,
retention going
what
on.
Sault Ste. Marie Greyhound could be traded for Gensel? That's actually the question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Michael Bunting.
Ah,
There you go. Gensel for Bunting. You heard it here first. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, like we talked about this a few weeks ago about how the Penguins might be on a road where their sort of destiny is laid out in front of them. And it seems like things have leaned one way, where this might be sort of the party coming to an end in a way. And yeah, Gensel might be the first domino to fall because it's not looking great. We also heard that Riley Smith was on the trade block.
yeah, he's
I
been out there
mean,
for a while now.
yeah, it's
It's
been out
possible that
there.
he could go to Vegas and they'll retain maybe,
Yeah,
which makes
back
sense.
to
It's like
Vegas.
he never
Yep.
felt. I've heard that he never really embraced being a Penguin.
Right.
So we'll see. But Pittsburgh is going to be fascinating. They're also reportedly moving on from Alex Nedeljkovic, which makes sense. If a team wants to
Yep.
add a backup goaltender, you can probably get Ned for a third, maybe a second, if at the high end.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at it from a range because I don't know exactly what the market is going to be for him, but I could see a team like Colorado potentially doing
Yeah.
that. Like teams that need backups, teams that need to get their guys to rest.
Be an upgrade on David Riddick. Actually, no, he wouldn't because David Riddick's the best goalie in the league.
Big save,
He's
Dave, baby.
Yeah, big save Dave having the best season out of any human being in the NHL this year. But yeah, I mean, again, it's like Pittsburgh. I'll be. You know what? I think Pittsburgh is the most interesting team right now. Like long term, like what that team is going to be like for the next little while. Because again, I've said this since the day he was hired. But Kyle Dubas has probably the most interesting but toughest job of all general managers right now. Like he has some Hall of Fame players at the ends of their careers who it would be kind of insane to trade them, but there's nothing really else to play around with.
How can you trade them? Like you kind of can't. The only player you could trade because his contract's closer to ending is Crosby, and you're not doing that.
You're not doing that.
Like
right?
they've extended Letang, they've extended Malkin. What are you going to do? Trade Carlson after acquiring him? I mean, it's possible because he made his team better, even like regardless of that. Like he opened up a ton of flexibility. So it's possible that we see Carlson in the offseason again moved. It'd just be kind of nuts, right?
Yeah, that would be crazy. Like I get the feeling that they're kind of walking into one of those like the era that the Penguins were in with like the tail end of Mario Lemieux and what's his name, Jaromir Jagr signed as a free agent and left the team. But it would be like if they extended Jaromir Jagr at the time for like 8 years and gave him, $1 bajillion and he was riding out into the sunset with them. But the other thing too at the time, I guess, for Pittsburgh is they had no money. But anyway, like Mario Lemieux was on those teams. That's probably the only player worth noting on those teams, honestly.
Yeah, but when does it become Sid ushers in the next generation of Penguin the way Mario did for him, right? Like when's that going to happen?
Yeah.
And it might be soon, and it better be soon at some level. Like I know they want to retool, and I agree with the idea of retooling because like to me I just hate full rebuilds. I think they're dumb. I think you end up in situations like Buffalo where you don't make the playoffs for 12 years?
Yes.
Right, like you have those sort of situations where it's just fire sale, fire sale, fire sale. Like even think about the Edmonton Oilers before where they were now. You know how pathetic they were?
Yeah, they were, dude, terrible.
Exactly. Brutal. They were pathetic.
Brutal.
And
year after year
it only took 4 first overall picks and a 3rd overall pick, as well as a generational player, probably maybe the best player of all time, in order to change the course of that franchise.
Yeah.
So it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. Like that's the type of suffering you might have to endure.
And even then, the Oilers are still, like, they're great now, but for a long time there with Connor McDavid on the team, you're like, what the heck are they doing? Like, what is happening here? Because, 1, 2, 3. I thought they had more first-round picks or first overall picks, but yeah, you're right. It was only 4. Interesting. But that's enough.
But they
that's
had
a lot
a 3rd
of
overall pick in that. They had a 4th overall pick in that.
They had another top 10 pick. They took Darnell Nurse. Magnus Pajärvi was 10th overall in 2009.
Yeah,
Philip
like
Broberg was a top 10 pick. They picked in the top 10, just to do the math, between 2009 and 2019. So 11 drafts. They drafted in the top 10 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times out of 11 drafts. They were drafting in the top 10.
which is ridiculous. And you
That is
can't
whack.
you can't go through a cycle like that.
Raybro grew up with that. That's true. You would have been a child when the Oilers were just entering how bad they were. I was in university, and let me tell you, some of those teams were really, really sad.
Yeah.
And the Penguins might be going in. I don't think they're going to be that bad, but I mean,
I hope not.
they don't have much in the way of players that are on the way that I think are going to be huge needle movers. They're selling some of the guys that are younger and a bit more capable. Like, they're going to be a team pretty soon of just a bunch of old guys who are just bringing in the next generation of Penguins. But also, who is that, right? Like, who is the next generation? Of Penguins?
We don't know that yet.
Exactly.
And that's
we don't
the problem.
know. So that's the thing. Like, how long is it going to take, if they don't want picks and prospects and stuff now, to accumulate the necessary guys to have that are going to be there while Sidney Crosby is still there, or while Evgeny Malkin is still there? Like, who are those players? Because they don't have them now. And if they get them in the draft this year, I mean, I guess they get them through these Gensel trades and Riley Smith, but if they don't want prospects, or they only want guys that are really close to the NHL, it'll just be interesting, because that to me is what makes this team so fascinating to think about in the future. Like, I don't think they're gonna, be a terrible organization now. It's that I don't think it's that bad, but I'm just very interested.
They're gonna be mid. They're gonna be very mid based on the way they're trending now.
And you know what though? Like, again, you said it. Tanking is overrated.
It 100% is
overrated. I think I think people seem to think that the world works like a video game, and it just does not. Like, the psychological aspect of this, especially with athletes, is so not talked about or not taken into consideration. Of like, oh, this team should have done this because then this would have happened, or whatever, or they should do this because who cares about the whatever. It's like, yes, but there's another side of this, right? Like, you tank and tank and tank. Number one, it's harder to sell tickets. Number two, there's no guarantee that a really high draft pick is going to actually save your franchise,
or that you're going to pick the right player.
Right. And number three, like, you also have to think about picks outside the first round and like make sure you're doing a good job there. And you don't want to miss on those. And you also, like, being like, I think Nick Kypreos said this. I think Steve Dangle said something about the Toronto Maple Leafs and how happy he was that they were losing, and how it was a goal to have the worst record in the year to try to get Austin Matthews, which, granted, I don't think Leaf fans mind having Austin Matthews. But Nick Kypreos basically called it, like, he called him a loser. And in the truest sense of the word, that is what is happening if you tank, right? Like, it is loser behavior, right? You are trying to be bad. And I feel like going from trying to be bad to trying to be good is a very difficult turnaround, right? Like, I think that's much more difficult than I think.
Especially because you sell off the guys who know how to win in the process.
Yes.
And it's not about the guys who know how to win playoff games, because you got to win regular season games to make it there in the first place.
Yeah.
So you're losing those guys. Yeah. You're losing the veterans who shepherd the guys along. They don't even have to be that old, like that much older. Like, even if they're just seasoned NHL players, right? Like,
yeah,
an Austin Matthews aged player, even younger than that, can shepherd along other players. You just need guys who are there and you're competing. You feel like you've got a chance, or you're fighting for something. If you don't have that fire, your team can burn out, or like it doesn't burn anymore. Like, it ends in a lot of ways, and that's why we have the Buffalo Sabres where they are now. But like, we saw them get a little better because they brought in guys like Alex Tuck, who knows what it's like to try and push and win, right? And even then, it's been a bit of a disaster still.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I don't know. It's a tough job for Dubas. It's very different from when he was in Toronto, and it's a test. Like, he's got the keys to the Ferrari. Even though Ferraris don't generally come in black and yellow. I guess they do sometimes, but they prefer to make them in red. But, Dubas has the keys to the car, and he doesn't really have a whole lot of power in the engine right now. It's an old car, but he's trying to sort of fix it up, and it'll be interesting to see what that team looks like in a little while because, they're not going to draft super high this year, it seems. We'll see what their last 20 games look like, but they're probably not going to draft really high. And they may not moving forward, right? Just because Sidney Crosby, like their top unit is still just firing on all cylinders. Who's the guy that's going to step in for Jake Gensel, who's going to have their offense go up quite a bit, right? Like, who knows?
I don't think they have a guy like that, though. That's the problem. They can't really replace it.
I'm being optimistic.
They'll try with the trade, but
yeah, like Jonathan Gruden, like I don't know. Emil Bemstrom, they just got him. He can shoot. If you put him with Sidney Crosby will serve up a meal for him and he can finish it. But I don't know. It's tricky. It's a tricky spot for them, and the last few weeks have definitely sort of set things in stone. Was there an interjection there? I heard a sound, but no.
No, there was not an interjection.
All right. Okay. Then I think on that note, unless you have more to say about the Pittsburgh Penguins, I'm just fascinated by them. I can't wait to see what's going to happen with them. I'm optimistic because I think Kyle Dubas is a capable person at doing his job. But I don't know. I don't know what I would do if I were him, to be honest. I don't know what my strategy would be. But
you move on, just like as we're going to do with this topic.
Yes, exactly. Okay. All right. So a couple of things have happened in the NHL we just wanted to hit quick. First thing, Tommy Novak signed an extension. Was it today, I think?
Yes, it was today.
3 years of $3.5 million average annual value. I really like Tommy Novak, and I know you watched him today and came to the same conclusion. $3.5 million for any player that's worth having these days is great value to me. $3.5 million these days is not that much money to play for a player, let alone a 26-year-old. Like, he's not even going to be 30, I think. He'll be 30 when this contract ends. So Tommy Novak, a guy who kind of came out of nowhere-ish, third-round pick of the Nashville Predators, and he's just sort of steadily gotten better and better and better every year, to the point where now he's, a 50-ish point guy. He's not the biggest dude in the universe, but the skills there, the quickness is there. You just love watching him for sure.
Yeah, he's tenacious. He's a lot of fun.
He's got the dog, man.
You know what's awesome about him?
That guy.
What I really like,
I don't know,
is that he enables Roman Josi to do his thing. Like, he goes back and plays defense in place of Roman Josi, while he goes and decides to be Erik Karlsson on the San Jose Sharks.
Yeah,
that's what it's like, and it's cool because Roman Josi, I've always really liked Roman Josi, and the fact that there is a system in place, and this is what we were talking about earlier about having Andrew Brunette there, like potentially in New Jersey as that option to fill in, but now he's in Nashville. And this is what he's done, where a guy like Tommy Novak drops back, lets Roman Josi play offense, because Roman Josi is their best player offensively. Like, he just is. Like, Philip Forsberg's great, but I still would give the edge to Roman Josi. So to let Roman Josi do that, and he does it seamlessly. Like, it doesn't seem like there's a problem at all. He just drops back, he covers, waits till Roman Josi slowly comes back sometimes, and then we'll switch out. Like, he's very good. Like, this is a player who could play positionless hockey if you wanted to do a system like that. And he's super valuable. I really like Tommy Novak. And I'm excited to see what he does. Like, he's a really good middle six center. Like, that's what you want. Ideally, he's your 3C. He's what the Leafs wish David Kampf was, but he's not.
That's true. Right. Leaf team construction mentioned at 8:45 p.m. by the way. But I agree. I've really liked Tommy Novak after he sort of burst onto the scene a little bit last year. Nashville is another team that's just fascinating me this year because, like, considering how high scoring the league is, this is a team with 2 point per game players in a world where it's normal to score 1 point and 1.25 points a game. They only have 2 guys over 2/3 a point a game, or 4 guys, I should say. Nyquist, O'Reilly, Josi, and Forsberg. That's it. And they are a team that in their last 11 games are 9-2. They are the 3rd best team since February 1st. and they are sitting in a playoff spot, if I'm not mistaken. They've sort of
They
powered their way. They have powered their way into a playoff spot. Yes, and by a nice cushion. They got 7 points on the Calgary Flames right now.
which is kind of crazy. Like you look at it,
like,
and the West is consolidating.
Now, here's a question you might enjoy.
Ooh.
The Nashville Predators, if the playoffs started tomorrow, would play the Vancouver Canucks. Who wins the series between Vancouver and Nashville?
Probably still Vancouver.
Probably.
But it's close.
But UC Saros.
Yeah, but Thatcher Demko.
But UC Saros.
Sure, but
have you thought of that?
Yeah, but
the
Thatcher
Vancouver
Demko's
Canucks,
having a better year. Though UC Saros has been incredible.
Yeah, he's
recently.
been unbelievable.
Recently,
yeah,
he has been.
Yes.
It was a really rough start.
Yes.
I know because I have him in fantasy. But he's heating up for my playoffs. So please, UC, deliver me the trophy. I want to win my fourth title in 5 years. Please.
So if you take UC Saros and put him on the New Jersey Devils, is Lindy Ruff still the head coach of the team? Probably.
Absolutely.
I would think.
Absolutely.
And that team probably is winning 60 games this year.
I don't know.
Well, I'm being a little bit hyperbolic there, but it wouldn't hurt because I think if you swap the goalie situation, Nashville, New Jersey, I do not think Nashville is anywhere close to where they are right now. Especially down the last little while with Saros in that, because
I'm with that.
That like it's just again like all you need in the NHL is like league average goaltending and a good team. If you don't have league average goaltending, you are dead. Like you're done. You know, like it's a lot more difficult to win if you're not, even if you're
if you have
your
bad
opponent.
goaltending, you're done. Even if you have a little suboptimal, you can make do. Like the Colorado Avalanche won the cup with Darcy Kemper having vision through one eye.
Right. That's true.
So it happens.
Oh my god.
But you need somebody who can stop pucks at least semi-consistently.
Right.
Or reliably to an extent. They also had the best decor in the league, so that helped to insulate that. But, it all depends on your roster construction. But yeah, Nashville's an interesting one to me because we'll see what they end up becoming. I can't help but think that they're still going to stay very middle of the pack.
Yeah, but the good thing about Nashville is I feel like as long as they have UC Saros, they won't be terrible. And the good thing is, I guess, because we were just talking about how tanking isn't good, the Nashville Predators are a team that may very well make the playoffs, but they also have 11 picks this year. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They have 11 draft picks this year. None of them are conditional. They've got 3 second-round picks and 3 fourth-round picks and 2 third-round picks. I mean, if it were me, I probably wouldn't deal a whole bunch of those unless I absolutely was sure that what I was getting was, worth having. Because I don't know if I buy that this team is a team that legitimately can go on a deep run. But I guess crazier things have happened.
I don't think they do. I don't think they think that either, to be fair.
No.
If anything, they're going to add like something minor and small based on what I was hearing today. So
yeah.
I don't expect them to sell. Like Tommy Novak was a big trade target of the New York Rangers specifically.
Right.
And for good reason. Like they could use him. And so looking at it from that perspective, it's like you get rid of one really good guy on the market. So that's going to up the price of other guys. And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we will. I mean, I get the feeling also from Barry Trotz that he's a guy who has the idea in mind of what he wants out of the Predators. And even though they're kind of outperforming what they thought they might be this year, I think he's not, I wouldn't say foolish enough, but he's not tricked enough by that to go, okay, well, maybe we should just go for it because we have a bunch of picks. Like he said a number of times over the last year that, the whole point is to add more skill and draft a lot more young players and sort of build up a new generation of Predators because it's not that the writing was on the wall for that team, but like you need to sort of churn things around a little bit, and I think Trotz will just continue to do that. He doesn't strike me as the kind of person to just sort of throw a strategy by the wayside to go, you know what, we're barely in a playoff spot. If we get a little bit better on paper, maybe we'll do better in the playoffs, and who knows what could happen, right? Like it's more about the long term with this team. And I mean, they've got some decent players on the team where if they stick around, like they might be able to do like what the Rangers did, right? When the Rangers had that terrible season, they turned, or when the Rangers were kind of struggling a little bit and like announced their sort of rebuild, it didn't take very long for the Rangers to get good again, right? So I guess
that's
for the
different. I look at the Rangers kind of got handed everything at some level. Like Panarin, they just gave a massive contract to, and he wanted to go there.
right,
Adam Fox forced his way into that situation. Like I don't look at the Rangers. What they did is anything special. They just got gifted stuff at the end of the day. Like you got gifted a top 2 defenseman in the NHL in Adam Fox because he wanted to play for your team, or at the very least a top 5 defenseman in the NHL because he wanted to play there. Artemi Panarin, you got gifted a top winger because he wanted to play there, and you could give him the money to do it, right? They had pieces like Chris Kreider already, and he got better. But, like, I don't look at the Rangers and think, oh, they did such a fantastic job. They just kind of they didn't really sell anything yet, and they just kept the band together, even though they said, oh, we're going to rebuild. And it ended up being okay.
I mean, you're not wrong. All I'm saying is that teams don't have to get awful in order to remain good.
Well, but that proves it, does it not?
What?
You don't have to get awful. They were just kind of mid, even though they said they were going through a rebuild. But they did get gifted things.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Sure. But in any case, anyway, the Preds are going to be fine. I get the feeling that they're going to be fine. And especially as long as they have UC Saros in net, I'm sure. All right, Elias Pettersson. The saga continues, and I think comes to
it ends. It ends.
Well, it's the ending is still part of the saga, Smarty Pants.
But it's over. He's now the highest paid Swedish player over William Nylander, so he gets to laugh at him because he makes $100,000 a year more.
Tough life, eh? Tough life to be on the receiving end of insults like that. Gosh.
It's okay.
I only make $11.5 million compared to my friend's 11.6. That's really a shame for me.
Yeah.
I feel so belittled.
He wears the pants in our relationship.
It was hard to imagine Elias Pettersson doing anything but this. I mean, I'm wearing the Pettersson jersey in honor of him signing a deal to stay with this glorious Vancouver franchise for a number of years through the best years of his career, hopefully. I mean, I figured that this was coming. I think that the idea of talking about maybe trading him was maybe just for fun on our end of things more than anything. It just really did not sound like. I mean, the only thing I thought was like ridiculously weird was when they approached him with a trade offer, or like they came to him and said, "Hey, Carolina really seems to want you, and we're not afraid to send you there if you don't want to, put pen to paper." And I mean, again, like it was reported a lot, but that's a risky move, but it seems to have worked. And if I'm his agent, if I'm Elias Pettersson's agent, it just made a whole lot of sense. Once things got a little bit messy out in the public, if the whole plan the whole time was to eventually sign, just not in the middle of the season, and you kind of both know what number you kind of want to be at, I guess, literally push came to shove, and they're like, you know what, let's just do it, get it done, avoid the firestorm, or at least, quell it, and just move on. So Elias Pettersson remains with the Vancouver Canucks. They now, I believe, have most of their top unit locked up for a little while. Brock Besser, I think, is a guy who I'm just checking now. Brock Besser, his contract ends after next season. They'll see what they do with Elias Lindholm, but Miller and Pettersson and Quinn Hughes are all locked up for quite a while. Quinn Hughes has 3 more years on his deal. Thatcher Demko also locked up for another 2 years, and you got Besser until the end of next year. I mean, that's a good start moving forward for Vancouver, and I mean, it just makes a ton of sense. Again, Vancouver's another fascinating one, though. Just looking at their cap friendly, Tyler Myers, Nikita Zadorov, Ian Cole, all UFAs after this year on defense. Philip Hronik is an RFA, but yeah, I guess
they got a lot to play around with for sure.
They got a lot to play around with. Yeah, they'll sign Philip Hronik for probably a solid chunk of change because he's been having the best year of his career playing with Quinn Hughes. But yeah, I mean, good for Pettersson. It's a huge deal. He did, I think, have one of the better deals in the league before this at $7.35 million. on a short-term deal, but this is kind of why you sign those short-term deals, is you wait for the cap to move around a little bit, and then you just come at him hard if you have a couple of good years. So hopefully this puts to bed all of the Elias Pettersson discussion, at least for, I don't know,
It
6
will.
years?
It will.
6 years, maybe? 6, 7 years?
It's done it for sure.
yeah.
But now, you know what it's time for?
What?
The Bush discussion. Ilya
boy.
Lyubushkin.
The greatest
Here
player to ever
comes
play
the
the game.
Bush.
Here comes the Bush. So Ilya Lyubushkin traded from the Anaheim Ducks with half of his salary retained to Toronto for a 2026 third-round pick, and Carolina gets a 2024 sixth. Is that what it was? I thought it was the other way around. I thought the third-round pick was 2024 and the sixth was 2026, but we can double-check that. It doesn't matter. A third and a sixth-round pick traded, either way, Toronto had 9 picks in this year's draft, so moving one, who cares, especially if it's a pick outside the top 64, like whatever.
But Carolina's going to take another Timur Mukanov with that 6th-round pick.
Yes.
I messaged Will after, and I'm like, oh no, I'm more worried about the 6th-round pick because they're going to take somebody awesome.
Yeah, they're going to take someone who is actually good and maybe comes to the NHL in 5 years. But Ilya Lyubushkin, he was traded from Buffalo this summer, if I'm not mistaken, and it was for less than this.
Yeah, it was for a 4th.
It was for a 4th-round pick. And then with the Anaheim Ducks this year, somehow, he has shown himself to be worth more than that. But
I think more than anything, it's just that you're getting him retained, so that could up the value a bit. And then the 6th is to Carolina to retain again. Like, to me, it's not a needle-moving deal.
No, it's not.
But the way I look at it is you get some depth. They desperately needed a right-hand shot guy, especially when Timothy Liljegren was out, and thank God he's back. Like, there was times where they really, really struggled to break the puck out of their own zone because they played with 6 lefty. So
yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, it's really rough.
Ideal. You don't want that.
Now go out, get Sean Walker, make me a happy boy, and I think that's about as much as we need to say about that, and we can move on to you wonderful people, your chat questions. So, Will, why don't you take us into an ad read, and I
guess we'll
start scrolling through these things.
I could do that unless Matthew Rempe feels like coming and elbowing me in the head. I don't know. I think I'll.
You're gonna be out. You're gonna be out until trade deadline.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna be on the injured reserve list thanks to a Matthew Rempe charging from behind. Anyway, I don't know. We're brought to you by Fanatics. You can use our affiliate link below or scan the QR code to provide a kickback to the show on anything you buy in the store. You can also support us through Puck Preps with a subscription to get all your NCAA and CHL prospect needs. We're also brought to you by Fractal Hockey Consulting, my business for hand-tracked player analysis and recruitment packages for the NCAA, Europe, and beyond. And if you are interested in getting work opportunities with European hockey, you can get in touch with me, and we can get you connected with the Golden Bucket Tournament, where you will be exposed to a number of varying levels of European organizations. I believe there's a team from a very beautiful city in Spain coming down. If you wanted to ever wonder what playing hockey in Spain was like, it's a pretty interesting little thing.
That sounds cool.
It does. There's a lot of cool places to play hockey where no one will know who you are and you could make a decent amount of money. A lot of European teams will pay for your room and board. A lot of European teams have partnerships with local universities, so you can get a master's degree. Hey, man, it's not so bad at times. But anyway, you can also subscribe to Scouching.ca and get exclusive access to innovative data tools with unparalleled insights into draft prospects and players making their way into the NHL. All right, chat questions. Let me just scroll all the way to the top here, unless you have immediate ones you'd like to throw out there, producer man.
No, we do first come, first serve, unless you donate.
Served. Right, that's true. Yes, if you give us money, we'll put you at the front of the line, just like a good capitalist society should.
Pay to win, baby.
Yeah, pay to win. Favorite Mountain Goats album? Honestly, I am not huge into the Mountain Goats. I have never really been into them. I think if I'm thinking of the same band, I went through, just like any young man, I went through a bit of a phase. Is this the right Yeah, yes, they are. In the late 2000s, when everybody was happy for the last time, uh, that was kind of when the Mountain Goats were on my radar a little bit, but I never really got into them. So unfortunately, I can't really answer that question. What's the biggest thing Green Tree needs to work on? Well, yeah, I just watched him this afternoon. Um, Honestly, with him, it's his skating. Like he's just slow. Like he's slow. He's an excellent manager of pressure, but he's slow. So if he is, in the offensive zone and Windsor manages to get the puck there and he's participating in offense, he's a nightmare to deal with. But, it's not terrible, right? But it is the biggest thing that is holding him back from, to me, being one of the best players in the draft. I think Green Tree has the potential to be a guy we look back on and go, how did that guy go 12th? Or how did that guy go 15th? Because, he's an unrefined guy in some ways, but you can obviously see the signs. Like if there's a guy in this draft who a team I could see jumping up and at the podium and is the guy who the audience kind of gasps at in the first round in the top 10, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Green Tree, because there are things that, if you were to watch him as he is, you might go, what's the big deal about this guy? But then you see the things that kind of make him special, or at least very unique. And you kind of go, okay, like I could see, it wouldn't work in the NHL now, but you give him 3-4 years and you sort of say, well, the focus will be sort of getting you fluid on your feet, generating speed a little bit more efficiently and puck handling at high speed a little bit better. Because when things slow down, like the NHL can kind of slow down a lot of the time. It's not always super fast, but when it slows down, that's when sort of your strength and thinking on the fly and adaptive thinking and ability to scan the ice and just make a play under pressure is really important, which is where a lot of these sort of fast, skilled guys kind of fall apart. But Green Tree's the opposite, right? Like he's not the fastest guy and the most skilled guy at high speeds, but when things get slow, he's a really, really tough one to figure out in a good way. Skylar Greenberg, hello. Wanted to get your thoughts on BC's freshman line or Team USA's line of Smith, Perreault, and Leonard. What do you think of their performance so far, or if any of the three should go pro or return to Boston College? I mean, they've been amazing all year. Boston College, I believe, is one of the top ranked teams in the country. I don't want to double check that. I'm checking US College Hockey, USCHO or USCO, something like whatever people call it. I just want to see the rankings because I actually feel like I should also know this. But anyway, they've been great. It's hard to say that they are anything but. Yeah, Boston College is the unanimous best team in the country. They're 27 wins, 5 losses with 1 loss in overtime this year. Well ahead of the next best challenger, who is looks like Wisconsin is 25-9-2 this year. Today I learned Wisconsin's actually having a really good year. Good for them. But anyway,
the line's sick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's left to say about the Boston College guys. I mean, they're the same guys that they always have been.
But should they go pro, Will? That is the real question here. Who of the bunch should, if any? Because
the thing is, like
time,
all of them,
right?
All of them would, I think, have to play in the AHL or get loaned out to junior. Except, would Will Smith be able to go to the AHL? I don't think any of them are 04s. I think they're all, because they were all in the NTDP together, so they're all the same birth year. So, I mean, I don't think there's a rush to send them all into the NHL. I think San Jose, especially, like with Will Smith, like what rush is there to put Will Smith in the NHL? I mean, he's having an unbelievable year. So is so I almost called him Gilbert. So is Gabe Perreault. Gabe Perreault, I like him a lot. I'm very curious to see how he does in the AHL. Ryan Leonard is an interesting one too. I feel like I'd send Ryan Leonard back for a year because he's been very, very good, but that sort of power forward style of play maybe takes a little bit longer to sort of really refine to the point where he's an NHL talent. And in a way, it's a maybe philosophical discussion, but in a way, I kind of feel like these really young guys who have played together for years maybe would develop a little bit better with another year together in college, even though the AHL might maybe be a bigger test. I don't think it would surprise me that any of them would go pro after this year, especially like a Will Smith and Perot. I'd say those two guys are more likely. But all three of them, if they all goes pro and sign contracts, I wouldn't be totally surprised. But I might maybe give them a little bit of a longer runway and let them just dominate college a little bit more and just keep getting better and better. Is Alexander Holtz finally free? I mean, I guess, right?
We'll see,
like,
right?
We'll see.
It'll all depend
we'll see
on
what
the
Travis
deployment.
Green does with him. Yeah.
And maybe the freedom comes in the form of a trade at some point. But, I mean, it'll all depend, right?
Yeah.
He's a decent player. Does he need maybe a higher spot up the lineup to show what he's capable of? It's possible.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's why you move to Foley, because it opens up more spots and you get assets.
What happened to Carter Verhaeghe to go from the East Coast Hockey League to top 40-ish player in the NHL?
That's a very good question. I actually don't know.
That's an excellent question, and I don't think I even know the answer to that. I honestly, with Carter Verhaeghe, I remember him with the Toronto Marlies because I think I saw him play in person a couple of times around that era. And I did think he was like, the shot was always there. Like his ability to shoot the puck always was there. I think a big thing that helped was I think he got a lot stronger physically. I think that he just was a more of a skill leaning two-way guy, that like a skill leaning guy with a great shot that leaned a little bit more two-way, but didn't quite have the strength to play that way. And just slowly kind of improved in that way. But what brought him to this point, I have no idea. I don't know. But maybe in the off season, what I will say, I used to work for McKean's Hockey, and I used to do sort of a what actually happened to this player. So a player that was drafted really high and maybe didn't work out, or a player that was drafted low and did work out, and examining why that might be. I will bring that back for scouching.ca, but in the off season. So that'll be more off season content because it's just a lot easier to get organized with that kind of stuff then. And I imagine Verhaeghe might be one of those guys that's part of that. What is the end game for humanity? Well, it really depends on what we do as a species, honestly. Because eventually, one way or the other, the Earth is going to get roasted to a crisp. That's a fact that we know. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean the end of humanity, right? Like if you subscribe to the Elon Musk line of thinking and you're already sick and tired of the Earth and you want to go live on Mars for some
That's
insane
so stupid
reason,
why would you go to a planet that was not you didn't evolve to? Like we've evolved to the Earth. We've evolved to live on Earth. It's literally the Mars, perfect place. If we ruin this planet, that's the end game for humanity.
Yeah, that's it. That's
death.
It. But the good thing about humans is that they're very adaptable. At one point, there were only 6,000 humans left on the planet, and we survived. So humans are where they're at because they're adaptable. So what's the saying?
Crazy.
I think Winston
There's
Churchill
probably more than
said
6,000 people in my neighborhood.
Yeah, man. Ice ages are crazy. But I think was Winston Churchill who said people always do the worst things until they are in a crisis, or something along the lines of like they'll do everything but the right thing, and then when the right thing is the thing that has to happen, that's when you see humans do the human thing. So I guess the end game for humanity, like on Earth, eventually it will be when the sun heats up by about 10 or 15% and then roasts us to a crisp. But if we manage to be somewhere else, perhaps, I don't know where else that would be, because we don't know anywhere else that is suitable for humans to live.
Beyond that, we can't reach that point at this point in time without but there's already stuff that makes it look like long distance space travel might be very difficult to accomplish, almost maybe even impossible, and that's potentially why we don't see aliens.
They said,
see, we're science nerds too on this show.
But they did say in the 1800s, they said there was multiple, I actually read these articles, but there was articles in like Popular Science and Scientific American and stuff about these people who were like experimenting with flight, and people like basically trying to learn how to fly and killing themselves doing so. And there was a lot of them and all these crazy theories about how to fly. And they were like, none of this is going to work. The air is not for humans, it's for birds, and we're never going to fly ever. We're probably 300 years away from it. And then 30 years later, the Wright brothers flew the Kitty Hawk or whatever it was called, and the world was changed forever. So who knows? No one could have predicted the internet coming in
I set my
1979.
Kobe bar low, okay? As a wise man once said on this podcast.
Listen, I just came out of the Dune 2 screening where it's set in the year 20,000 or something like that. So I'm on an optimism streak here. Not that I want to live in that universe. That universe seems like a awful place to live. But anyway, but at the end of the day, the end game for humanity, assuming everything goes perfectly, really it's the heat death of the universe, where literally everything decays to the point where the universe is just radiation flying around in empty space and maybe some black holes that are left over that are slowly evaporating until like time goes on infinitely. So unfortunately, that seems to be the end game where, everything is just little individual particles flying around the universe. There's nothing there. You can't survive that, unfortunately.
Yeah,
can you talk about...
pretty crazy.
It's going to be, I hope I never see it because it seems pretty boring. I think I saw a video of someone theorizing how a species would be able to survive in that environment. And it would have to be, you'd have to be orbiting a black hole and like somehow harvesting the rotational energy of a black hole. But eventually black holes evaporate. So somehow that species would have to find a way to jump from black hole to black hole to harvest the energy before whatever. But eventually everything will die.
And they wonder why the fourth line never scores for the Toronto Maple Leafs with David Kampf down the middle.
Does that have anything to do with...
Because he's a black hole.
Oh, good one. Anyway, can you talk about what you saw in William Eklund as a draft year eligible? Thoughts on his play as a center in the NHL with Couture and Hurdle out, and he can stick it. Can he stick at center long term? So I'm gonna just say that I haven't seen a ton of William Eklund with the Sharks. I watched a lot more of the Sharks earlier in the year. But as a draft year, I can tell you all kinds of stuff about William Eklund. I thought he was great. He was number 2, I think, on my list.
Yes, he was. Even with my lobbying to get Fabian higher on your board.
He was 4, man. That's high enough. But anyway, with Will Eklund, not only does he have a fantastic first name, but he was just such an evasive guy, especially in the offensive zone along the boards, like just creating space for himself. And just thinking on the fly. Like he was a high-paced dude. I remember seeing him, take passes in stride on a breakout, make one quick skill move and rifle a pass to the offensive blue line to sort of stitch together a breakout in the offensive zone, shaking off pressure and just getting away from guys and making space for himself and making plays off the boards. He was great at that. The concern for sure, I think, and it's still there, is that he's a little bit slight and undersized and got pushed around a little bit and just, really relied on his feet to create a lot of space for himself. And if he didn't have that, it kind of limited him. I remember his first half was searing hot. And then I think people started to realize, maybe if we just apply pressure to this guy a little bit more, maybe we can shut him down a little bit. And I think that kind of happened. But I still feel as though drafting him at 7, which is where San Jose got him, was pretty much a no-brainer. I think he's a great player. He's got lots of potential. But I can't really comment on his play at center. I don't know about center long-term, though. So. Based on what I know about Eklund, I would not think he's a center long-term. But I said that about Stützle, and look at him now. Senators fans seem to want to trade him already. But anyway,
yeah, but he's just more suited to the wing, yes, I think. And even Stützle, you could make the argument to put him back on wing. Like, how good has he been at center this year in comparison to last, right? When teams get to figure you out in a certain role, you run into the sort of sophomore slump or a slump adapt, right? Yeah. So it'll depend. And he's good, but I'm not sure that he sticks at center, and that's fine.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Well, you know what? If you're ever going to experiment with something like that, now's the time.
Absolutely.
San Jose, right? Now's the time. Who cares if you lose? Whatever, right? Like
you want to lose, but try
you
to
want
win.
To lose, but try. Yes, you want to try the whole time. If you were constructing the best forward line and defense pair of the 2024 guys, who would you pick? So Celebrini would be the center on that line for sure. On the wing, probably Demidov on one side. And
You could
I
still
would
put
say
a setter. You could still put a setter
yeah,
on
I
that
was going
line.
to say Caden Lindstrom on that group would be crazy, like a Celebrini Demidov Lindstrom line, or yeah, like a Celebrini Demidov Green Tree kind of vibe, or a Ginla. Maybe that would be kind of where I go. But if I can put Caden Lindstrom on the wing, maybe I throw him in there as well. And defense pair, maybe I don't know. Let me double check what direction this guy shoots, because you got to make it balanced.
Yeah, Will just
Yeah,
hates all defensemen. He does every single year.
I do. Yes. A lot of them are left-hand shots. That's weird. Because I was gonna say Booyam and Dickinson. So, you know what? Screw it. I might do that because Dickinson's been playing on the right side a little bit this year, and he seems to be okay at it. So we'll say Booyam Dickinson feeding pucks to Celebrini, Lindstrom, and Demidov. Even though I have been supposedly sassing Sam Dickinson a whole lot, I feel like it would work just fine on that unit. And I think the defensemen this year are kind of okay anyway. When I'm being the next Kaprizov and my opponent is Ilya Pautov, that's true. He's an interesting player. I've got a game of his to watch this week. Is Dune 2 the greatest movie of all time? No, it is not. I mean, it's getting a ton of hype. I thought it was very, very good. I think I walked out of that saying that parts of it were like a 9.5 out of 10, but other parts of it were more like a 7.5. And it kind of averages out to like an 8 3/4 kind of movie. It's a great movie. If you love like just big cinema, like gigantic, like epic filmmaking, it's incredible for that. Like I had the most fun watching that movie for just seeing the scenes that were constructed, right? Like there's a scene on if you're familiar with the Dune universe, there's a scene on the Harkonnen planet where I won't say anything about what's happening, but there's this big sequence of scenes that's based on that planet that was all shot in infrared, apparently. And the infrared is so that it's like when you take it and put it in the visible spectrum. So infrared is a visual spectrum we can't see with our eyeballs, thankfully, because it would be brutal if we could. But you film in that frequency and then set it in the visible light spectrum. It comes out very like vibrant black and white. Like it's really bright, saturated black and white, if that makes any sense. And the ability to sort of like the contrast between the black and the white is so strong that in these scenes there's these crowds that look like millions of people, and the way that they're moving and the way that all this stuff, it's like I've never seen anything like it before. It's pretty crazy. I loved it. I thought it was great. I don't think it's like the greatest, like people were talking about the Empire Strikes Back and stuff, and I don't know, maybe it's just nostalgia glasses from when I was a kid, but I don't think it's quite on that level. But in terms of like the filmmaking, like if you're a filmmaking nerd, holy crap, like go see it, because I saw it on IMAX too, and that was also like ridiculous. So yeah, the one word review, if I were a movie reviewer that only wrote one word, I would say it's big. Like it's just a big movie. Everything is big. And it certainly was quite a film. What were your thoughts on Kuzma Voronin? He was one of my gems last year, but I haven't loved his tape so far this year. So Kuzma Voronin plays for the Youngstown Phantoms in the USHL. He is a USHL rookie. It's his first year there. Last year he was playing AAA hockey. He's playing like 10 minutes or so a night, so he's not playing a ton of minutes. And I've got Kuzma Voronin relatively high on my board. Most people don't even have him ranked, but I have him. He's ranked in the 90s for Central Scouting, and he's in my late second round. I just love the skill level that he has. He hasn't scored a ton of points. He's only got 17 points this year, last I checked, which isn't great. But also he's playing down the lineup on a team that is very, very loaded full of skill. The Youngstown Phantoms are very pro skill, pro speed, pro everything. They're a very AJ team, as you could say. And Kuzma Voronin is sort of a minor bit player in that, but you can see the signs of something really, really good there, I think. Just like one thing I love is if I'm seeing a smaller player who maybe isn't scoring like you would expect a smaller player to. I want to see them when I watch them at least look like they are trying, right? Like not floating around, not only participating in offense, not just thinking about scoring points. And I don't think he's that. I've seen he's one of the guys that throws himself around the ice and throws himself at people a lot more often than you would think. And if you give up the puck to him, he's off like a rocket. Like this guy is quick. He's super, super skilled, wicked shot. Like the tools are really high end. But for me, it's like with Voronin and guys like him, it is very difficult. It's like watching Kenta Isegai a couple of years ago. And I think there's a lot of echoes there because Isegai didn't really score a ton of points anywhere until this year. And when you look at Kuzma Voronin, he seems like a similar-ish player to Isegai, but to me, even more skilled and a little bit quicker. But the difference, the similarities between them are more like the processing play on the fly and making decisions at the right time and understanding what he can and can't get away with and how much pressure is too much pressure. Like I've seen Voronin in the corners, for example, like get a little bit of free space and just double back on himself right into more pressure and just making reads that aren't quite right. But Voronin has some incredible highlights from this year for sure. And I love the tenacity he has. Like if he's a guy that I'm picking in the middle rounds of the draft and just leaving him, like I think he's not even committed to a college yet. So you'll leave him in Youngstown for at least another year because he's going to play more and more as the guys ahead of him go to college. And I feel like he'll just get better and better with more and more ice time. I propose a new event at the NHL Combine, the quad girth measurement. Yeah, I mean, that would matter to me. That would decide whether or not I draft a player, how big their quadriceps muscles are. What position and role do you see Berkeley Catton and Caden Lindstrom playing in the NHL? I would say probably center for both. Maybe Lindstrom kind of takes the Quinton Byfield route and ends up on the wing, but could probably play center at some point in his career. I think Berkeley Catton you'd be remiss in underselling him if he put him on the wing, just because of how good he is all over the ice and how creative he is at managing the puck and how good he is at finding space on breakouts and making himself a target all the time. I think he's he's a guy that I for sure try at center as long as I can. And Lindstrom, I think, could be a center in the NHL, but boy, the offensive tools, like you almost kind of want to kind of go to him and be like, look, do you really want to play center? Because if you play the wing and we kind of give you less responsibility away from the offensive zone and you're more of a offensive guy, is that something you'd be okay with? And I feel like it's not the craziest thing to suggest to him, but I would be curious what he would think about that. The best Devils highlight this year was breaking Bedard's face. I mean, that was pretty notable. Brendan Smith, doing his thing, doing the Brendan Smith thing.
I mean, I've seen some pretty nice Jack Hughes goals this year.
Yes, Jack Hughes has been spectacular this year.
Don't know how much I agree with that take.
Breaking Bedard's face, baby. Welcome to the NHL moment, I suppose. Opinions on Cam Allen after returning from surgery and the likelihood he becomes an NHL defenseman. Yeah, so Cam
I don't see
Allen,
it. I don't
see it. Cam Allen has been, I mean, he had a tough year last year, and I think he's got like 2 points this year in like 12 games to start the year. He's not having an easy go of it. I never really felt like he was a super high-end guy that was, a steal or whatever. It's unfortunate because, he was a promising guy when he was 16, 17 years old, but just hasn't really worked out. And from what I've seen so far, just, I don't know. I don't think things have turned around, but it's never over, right? He's still just a teenager. So you never know, but tough year, couple of years for him. How long do you think it would take Ivan Demidov to make the NHL? Well, definitely
2-3 years, maybe.
Yeah, I would say 2 or 3 years. Like I would be stunned if he were in the MHL again next year. I mean, I don't know. St. Petersburg is a weird team. I don't know. Like the way that players like Matvei Michkov looked completely different playing on Sochi rather than St. Petersburg. But I would say, a couple of years. I hope to see Demidov in the KHL before the end of the year, to be honest. I mean, I know their playoffs are about to get going, so he's probably not going to be there. But I don't know. It seems like, I've been watching a lot of Ivan Demidov over the last couple of weeks because he's been so outrageously good. Like, the numbers are just out of control, even against good teams. Like, it's not a challenge for him where he is. Like, he can make mistakes and still finish a game with 4 points. Like, it's crazy just how dominant he is there now. He started a little bit slower, but since the new year especially, he has been out of control. And the fact that he's not even playing against pro competition, like, at all, and they seem to just, I don't know, maybe the strategy is we want our junior team to be the champions, and we have a top line that could beat literally anybody 6-0 if they played alone. Like, him and Ignat Lutfulin and who's the other guy on that line? Oh, Yegor Graf, who's another guy for this year's draft, who I like as well. Like, they're just so dominant that it doesn't matter. And maybe they just want them to win a championship. I don't know. But I would say 2 or 3 years. I know they're different positions, but if you had to choose between Seamus Casey and Gavin Brindley, who would you take? Does one project better than the NHL? Gavin Brindley by I'd say 10 yards.
I mean, I like them both, but it's Gavin Brindley.
I like them both. It's Gavin Brindley. Like, Seamus Casey, I think there's a chance that he doesn't work out, and I think that's why he slipped in the draft. Like, he's just small, and I would say not an elite skater, and the defensive play is still a question mark, but boy, is he ever skilled and creative and offensive leaning and everything. But Gavin Brindley is just a
machine.
200-foot machine. Yeah, I think Brindley is the guy I take easily. Saw a rumor, aka clickbait, for a trade bait. Kaprizov from the Wild to Detroit for Jonathan Berger and Nate Danielson and a first-round pick with Justin Hall.
Not a chance.
I mean, Detroit.
A chance.
That I don't know who posted that. I think I saw that somewhere. I think that might have just been some random person trying to get clicks, but that makes no sense. Nobody would. The
Wild would not do that.
The Wild, especially with Marat Husnadinov coming to town.
And you're not selling your best player. You're absolutely not selling your best player.
Yeah.
Like, do you think
no way?
And I know, and
not for that.
I know this is a person asking about it, like asking about would the Wild say yes or no, and I think it's a definitive no. So I'm not shooting the messenger. I'm shooting the person in the face who decided to put that out there as a real possibility.
You're shooting the person who wrote the letter. You're not shooting the messenger. You're shooting the person who wrote the letter.
Yes.
Because, that's, I mean, again,
ridiculous. Ridiculous.
I felt Nate Danielson was a pretty solid, intense reach in the top 10. Their first round pick this year is going to be 18th, 20th, something like that.
It'll depend. You never know.
Justin Hall you're dumping Justin Hall.
Yeah, they right? want to dump Justin Hall.
You don't sign a guy to a multi-year deal and trade him within a year if you're not dumping him. And Bergeron is fine, but not enough for Kaprizov. Like, if it would be like Sandin Pellikka, like 2 first-round picks.
And Lucas Raymond.
Yeah, and like Lucas Raymond or something. Like, you'd have to really, really, really want Kirill Kaprizov if you're going to be the Minnesota Wild and trade him.
And the Wild would have to want to get rid of him, which they don't.
Yeah, which they don't. But hypothetically, in a draft with so much uncertainty amongst defensemen, who would you say is the safe pick amongst all of them?
Isn't it Zeev?
No, I wouldn't say he's safe. It depends on what you mean by safe. Like, if I'm putting on my NHL hat,
right? Like,
are
we talking about defense, or are we talking like safe defensively, or are we talking safest to hit?
Yeah, because if you want a safe player who I think could play NHL minutes and do okay, I would say it's Artyom Levshinov. I just think that the way that guy's wired and the way that guy moves around the ice and kind of the things that he does, an NHL coach can look at him and do something with him. Something, especially with a couple of years of development. Dickinson, I'd say, is also in there. Dickinson's a weird player this year for me, but I still like him. He's top 10 on my list now. It's just I don't know how much I trust a player. I have no idea what I'm going to get when I sit down and watch him. And more often than not, I've kind of felt a little iffy about him. Zeev Buium, I'd say, is one of the smarter defensemen available, but I just don't know how much of an NHL impact he'll have. But I'd say Levshinov is in there. and maybe Salayev, and maybe that's why teams like them so much. But those two kind of stick out for me at least at the top end of the draft. Maybe Dominic Badinka if you want to think more down the lineup, because I think he's a pretty safe bet to be something in the NHL. Maybe not spectacular something. I could say the same thing about Stian Solberg in Norway. I don't think he's going to be an immensely successful NHL player, but boy, can that kid skate and hit. And sometimes in the NHL, if all you do is skate and hit and make a pass, then you can play for 800 games.
Oh no.
What?
The next question. Oh no.
Elliot Friedman saying Toronto could look at Justin Hall. AJ, are you buying?
No. I made a little doc because I listened to that whole podcast just to get some notes ready for our deadline show on Friday. So just so if you guys aren't aware, we're not doing a Thursday show. We're going to do like a 5.5 hour Friday show starting at 11 p.m. Eastern time, the only time zone that matters, at least in my universe, because that's the time I operate on. But anyways, yeah, they threw that out there and laughed because it's not happening.
Yeah, the key context, like I don't know if this was something that you read in a tweet, but generally the way someone says something, because I remember hearing that and they had a laugh about it. I just can't imagine that's going to happen. I don't know why Detroit would dump Justin Hall that fast.
Because he's not playing. He's not playing. He's scratched.
Yeah, and I don't know why Toronto would go out and get him. It doesn't really make any sense to me. Who you got for the Frozen Four and who will be the champions? That's a great question. I think there's a lot of really good NCAA teams this year. I mean, I really want to throw some dark horses out there. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, you can't really fault Boston University and Boston College. Boston University is just a wagon of a hockey team. And I've seen a lot more of them, obviously, for Macklin Celebrini than I have Boston College. I'd probably give an edge to, I don't know, like, you can never count out a team like Quinnipiac, too. I'll throw that out there as well. Like, they're an older team that tends to recruit guys that they know they can keep for a number of years, and they always have a pretty good team. And Colin Graff has been having another just fantastic season with them. And they have my boy Jake Martin on that team. And I actually was watching Jake Martin tape not too long ago because I was curious. And he only has like 1 point this year, but I still think he's decent. So that's an interesting thing I sort of came across. But he's only played 21 games this year, so maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, Colin Graff is having a spectacular year leading that team in scoring. And they've got some guys on that team that I like Andon Sorbonne, Sam Lipkin. So maybe they're more of a dark horse. Ivari Rossinen is another one that I've liked at this level. I've seen a little bit of Victor I can't ever pronounce this guy's name. Chernekianar, something like that. I remember watching him with Tri-City, I think, and thinking he was pretty decent. I think he played on the line with Gavin Brindley a few years ago. Maine is another team that may not win this year. Maine ought win this year.
Wow.
But they've got the Nadeau brothers. Thank you. But they have the Nadeau brothers who are leading the team in scoring by quite a wide margin. And I imagine they'll be back next year. But again, like a lot of this can kind of come down to goaltending, and I don't really have a great grasp on who these goaltenders in college are. I mean, you've got Jacob Fowler in Boston College, so he might gain the edge pretty much regardless. So maybe Jacob Fowler just carries them with their great team all the way to the end. Wisconsin is doing extremely well with 1 point a game player on their team, and their goaltender Kyle McClellan is a senior with a .932 save percentage this year. So that might explain a little bit of their success. Their leading goal scorer has 14 goals in 35 games this year, and it's Carson Bantle, by the way, if you're wondering. But anyway, I mean, I would say Boston College is probably the team that I'd throw out there, but I'm certainly not counting out a team like a Quinnipiac or one of those older teams to sort of slowly work their way through a tournament like this and get there. But I don't think the selection has even happened yet for that tournament, so we'll see what happens. Can AJ do a rain dance on camera so the NHL GMs can finally start trading? They are trading. There have been
No,
trades.
absolutely not.
Yeah,
I will
we've
come on
gotten
camera
trades.
at some point once I get
Yeah,
once I get a setup going that's proper. I don't want to show you my dirty room right now with an unmade bed. So please forgive my lack of a camera, but I will come on camera at some point. But no, I'm not doing that rain dance. I'll do that rain dance on deadline day.
Friday. Yeah, Friday. Yes.
We want stuff to cover. Thank you very much.
Yeah. David Phillips with another Russian who I've never heard of. What are your thoughts on Oleg Maestrenko? Well, all I know about him is that he wears number 69. So there's that. Gotta love how accessible that number is in Russian hockey. There are a lot of 69s.
Because it's a cool number. Or sorry, it's a nice number.
It's a nice number. But I honestly, he's the captain of the Red Army team in Moscow and the junior team, and they're a pretty good team. I have not really paid much attention to him, honestly. So I'll add him to the watch list and check him out just for you, David. What defense in this draft is most likely to hit number one upside, and why is it Artyom Levshinov in spite of public scouting doubts? Dude, a number one defenseman, if that's the case, then Artyom Levshinov should be a top, like, number one pick overall. Like, a number one defenseman in the NHL, there's like 20 of them. Like, that's, again, like the bar to hit that is so high that I refuse to look at a guy and go, yeah, this guy could be a number one defenseman in the NHL. Like, the NHL is so hard. I do think Levshinov does have the potential to maybe be the best NHL defenseman in this draft. Like, it's possible, but he is terrifying as he is now. He is scary. There's not a lot of, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of calculation in his game. There's a whole lot of issues with when you're on the rush against him. You can win a lot of the time. If you have a team that's just working really hard, you can just dip when he's pinned you against the boards. It's a little bit too easy to just sort of dip yourself closer to the ice and just get right through him. Levshinov is a guy who shows potential, but I still just do not, I just don't know. I saw the follow-up. I said most likely, not that but like, even then it's like most likely, like, it, to me, it like doesn't really matter. Like, most or will do. Like, it's like, it just probably won't happen with any of these guys just because it's such a hard bar to hit. And honestly, like, what does that even mean? Right? Like, what does a number one defenseman even mean? A guy who can play 25 minutes a night and look fine doing it, I guess. Could Levshinov do that? I can't say he can't, right? Like, I'm never going to say that any of these kids will never achieve a certain level of success. It's just not, you don't know. I'd be just surprised. That's all. I heard that in the last Devils game, they pulled their goalie and forgot to put out the extra attacker. I think I saw that too.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think I remember, now that you mentioned it, I think I saw that. That's pretty wild.
So maybe that's why Lindy got fired.
Maybe, yeah, just that. What team would be the best fit for a Dominic Badinka? I mean, any team could use a guy like that, and I feel like he's, again, like a really good skating, really mobile, big defender with a bit of skill who can break the puck out pretty well. Like, he just brings such a really well-rounded game defensively that I don't think there's a team that wouldn't want him. And especially because he's probably not going to be drafted super high at this point. And he won't be at the under 18s, so he won't get that under 18 bump anyway. So who knows? But I don't know. I mean, I guess the answer to your question for me is, like, I don't think there's a team that wouldn't like a player like him. Like, he checks so many boxes for NHL teams, like big, skates well, physical when he needs to be, good stick checker, gets into the dirty areas, but also can move the puck, can also shoot. He can do a lot of things decently well, very well, I should say. And I feel like that's going to be valuable to teams. Like, if he goes in the first round, I wouldn't be surprised. But if it were like super high in the first round at this point, I would be surprised, but pleasantly surprised, I suppose, because it's like, well, you know what? They're going for it. And they picked a guy who's probably going to be decent.
Yo, Nylander hat trick, but not the one I care about.
Was it a Gordie Howe hat trick?
No, it's an Alex Nylander hat trick.
Oh my God, Alex Nylander has a hat trick.
Yeah,
Good
no,
for
the
him.
Leafs lost already. Nylander didn't even
Oh,
get a point, but his brother
well,
has a hat trick against the Vegas
well,
Golden Knights with
good for
Jack
him.
Eichel back in the lineup.
Good for him. Maybe he is the best Nylander brother after all. Who knows?
Fake news.
Uh,
Actual fake news. Usually I say that and it's not, but in this case it really is.
yep. David with another Russian I probably have never seen before. Yaroslav Belyakov plays for Sibir Novosibirsk in the Russian league. Honestly, I don't know who this is. Again, you're stumping me here.
Go
But
ask Dylan
I'll
Griffin.
check them out
Dylan will know.
probably. But
We can get you in
yeah,
contact with Dylan.
Siberia is a tricky one. Siberia is a tricky place to evaluate hockey players unless their name is Yegor Klimovich. But I'll take a look at Belyakov. It seems like he's been hurt since the 24th. That's too bad. Of February, I should say. Thoughts on Nabokov? Double overager and 6 feet, but he has a 930 in the KHL. So yeah, I think that's Ilya Nabokov. I'll pull up his real name. But I have seen him
Is
a
he
little bit this
related
year.
to Evgeny Nabokov?
I do not believe so, but I could be wrong. Ilya Nabokov of Metallurg Magnitogorsk. He is not the son of the other Nabokov.
Big sad.
Yeah, I mean, he's having a very, very good year in the KHL. That can't be taken from him. I've seen him a bit. He'll get drafted. I think he's good enough to get drafted. And you know what? Is he good enough to play in the NHL? I don't know. The KHL is a softer league, not physically, but I mean softer talent-wise than it was 5 years ago, especially before the invasion in Ukraine. I think that it's been a league where people don't want to go there as much anymore. And the resources just aren't there as much to keep these teams sort of super competitive. Because war is expensive. But anyway, I've liked Nabokov whenever I've seen him, though. Pavel Moisevich is the guy who I might be a little more interested in. He's SKA, St. Petersburg's goaltender this year, or one of them. They play many of them. And he's like a 6'5" Belarusian kid who's been pretty good this year when I've seen him. But Nabokov has also been good. I don't know. Like, if a guy on my scouting team is like, no, if David Phillips is on my scouting team, and he's like, Ilya Nabokov is the greatest thing ever, and we need to draft him at like 70th overall, I'll go, okay, fine, like whatever. Like I trust a person maybe once in a while and go, okay, I've picked 2-3 guys that we really, really like. Let's go for the goalie and see how it goes and whatever. Because he does have the track record. He checks all the boxes. Isn't the biggest guy, but again, like the same rule applies to skaters as it does to goalies, right? Like I value size and goaltending personally, but if we're splitting hairs between 6 feet and 6'2", like that's like that. So
David already coming in here and saying he prefers a different goaltender.
Well, yes, that Ivan Yunin over him. I agree. I would take Ivan Yunin over this guy for sure, and just bet on him being better by the time he's the same age. Once David showed me Ivan Yunin, I'm on the Ivan Yunin hype train here. He's only played like 6 or 7 games this year, but I don't give a crap. He's so much fun and absolutely ridiculously athletic. I am certain that they have removed many ligaments from his knees in the first place just to see him move around as quickly as he does. New haircut. Yes, I got my haircut this morning. I also, by the way, since we were talking science earlier, I went to the library today. I went to the public library.
Lame.
I got myself a library card because I work from home now, and I really am sick of it. So I think for a couple of days a week at most, I'll be going to the library and working. But anyway, I went to the library.
Come on, Will.
And well, you should try it sometimes. Maybe it'll make you smart. But anyway,
no, I'm too stupid.
Well, that's true. You Gen Z kids don't know how to read anymore, apparently. So,
no, I just edit videos instead of read.
Right. You need content.
Exactly.
But yeah, I went to the library and got eclipse glasses. So April 8th this year, if you live in Southern Ontario, or I think it's like over Indiana through, I don't know, Google it yourself. I'm not doing geography for you, but Southern Ontario for sure, from about Hamilton, Burlington, down to the border, Niagara Falls. We're going to get a kick-ass total solar eclipse on April 8th at around 3 in the afternoon, 3:30 in the afternoon. It will be the first one in this area for, I think, over 120 years. And then I think we're not getting another one until 2114. So if you are alive right now, this is going to be the only time you get to see a total solar eclipse in this area of the world. So keep that in mind, and try to make some time. And I got them for free. The glasses were available for free at the library. You can also purchase them if you want, but you could also support your public local library and go get some free glasses and go see something really, really cool. If you ever wanted to see a sunset 360 degrees around you, April 8th is the time to do it. So be sure to check that out. Thoughts on Kevin He? Yeah, so Kevin He is a Niagara Ice Dogs winger who is known for scoring goals because someone's got to do it on the Niagara Ice Dogs. I like Kevin He. I mean, I wonder about if he is just going to be a really good junior goal scorer and maybe struggle beyond junior hockey. But he's got a bit of pace to him. He's got a bit of good skating ability to him. Not the most skilled guy, just kind of sort of just powers his way up the ice and just grips it and rips it. I remember watching Kevin He when he was playing with I think it was the Oakville Junior Rangers, North York Rangers. That's the one. And I really liked him back then as just like a sort of high skill or high pace, high speed goal scoring guy. He'll get drafted. I think he deserves to get drafted. But I'm not sure about the likelihood of hitting the NHL. But for a guy who has 30 goals this year, he's looked pretty good from when I've seen him. But maybe I have him on my short list right now, just as like a mid to late round pick if he's there. But I feel like there's just going to be other guys that play a similar role but do more stuff more gooder, if that makes sense.
Yes, because that is a word and makes sense.
Jeez. You just don't let me have any fun, do you? You just want to be the smartest guy in the room.
But I told you I'm dumb, so it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to be the smartest guy in the room. I'm just here to throw you off the way you made me throw off Steve Dangle on broadcasts. It's your fault I became the producer that fed him stats that made him scream. And now he won't even text me anymore, Will. This is your fault. Oops. That's why.
Oh, okay, it's my fault.
Yeah, it's your fault that he doesn't text me anymore. Not that we don't work together anymore.
Oh God. Anyway, if you're picking second overall, who are you taking right now? Probably Ivan Demidov. I'm just gonna go. You know what? I'm over it. I've seen both of them in the last week, and I'm over it. I'm over the skepticism. I don't care anymore. I'm just going for the rock star. I want the rock star on my team. I want the guy who's going to sell tickets.
So you're taking Ivan Demidov over our boy Berkeley?
I think so. Yeah.
Over Caden Lindstrom too. Okay.
I think so. Demidov, dude, just go on Sport Contract later.
Well, I remember we talked about Demidov the year before,
No, I mean, like just the last month and a half, 2 months. Like he's hit another gear.
I believe
how skilled he is and how creative he is.
I believe it.
And just how he's like a surgeon. He's like a terrifyingly evil surgeon who knows how to rip you to pieces, but put you back together in a way that you're never the same again. Like he is ridiculous. And I love Berkeley Catton. Like if someone said they really, really wanted Berkeley Catton, I wouldn't complain at all. But to me, the guy for me would be Demidov, just to go, you know what? Like if he doesn't work out, it's his own fault, right? Like that he's that good to me. Where like I'd obviously bring him along slowly but surely for sure.
No, I get it. We looked at him last year and we thought that he might be the number one guy.
Yeah,
like we were pretty certain at that point, or maybe not certain, but for a long time, you and I thought, okay, so Demidov's the next thing. We even looked at him and we're like, okay, is this guy better than Michkov? Like that's how highly we were talking about him. So for me, it's more just testing where you're really at with him. And just trying to understand that reasoning because you weren't there with him at the beginning of the year, which makes sense. Right. But if he's looking better and you're ready to jump on the hype train, then I'm all for it.
He's been unbelievable. He's been just so good. It's ridiculous. Just a joke. Any chance they go after Tom Fitzgerald? Job of the general manager at the Devils if things don't improve.
I doubt it. It's like how do you go against him at some level? I mean, like, it's possible, but when is if things don't improve? Is it this off season? Is it next year? If it's next year, maybe. I think you give Tom Fitzgerald another chance. Like he built a good team last year. I thought that this year's team was good. It just lacked a goaltender. And I think now that they've realized like it's more of an immediate thing that they need to address. Like they tried with Akira Schmid. He did win a playoff series against Igor Shesterkin. So let's not forget that happened, because it did. So that probably gave them some level of confidence. But at the end of the day, that's a 7-game playoff series, and now we've got not a full NHL season, but a good chunk of it where New Jersey's goaltending hasn't held up. So it's going to be about how he addresses the issue, what he pays, and at the end of the day, like, they've got so many good pieces on New Jersey, they're going to be great for years. Like,
and if they're not, then you fire them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like, yeah, I think I mean I would say if they don't change things in net and they still don't make the playoffs next year, then yes, I think so. Like, because it's so obvious that that's the biggest weakness on the team, and that has to get fixed, especially when it was out there that they were on the road to fixing it, right? Like, or at least trying to fix it. They were on the road of getting Jacob Markstrom, and one thing led to another, and it hasn't happened yet. So like, they know that that's something they need to do. So if they don't end up doing it and it's still not fixed by the end of next year, then yeah, I could see that, because like you're the guy responsible for fixing the problem, and you knew it was there and you didn't do anything about it at the end of the day, and here we are. But other than that, I get the feeling he'll stick around. Terrence Smith thoughts. He has decent production and skates well. Yeah, I watched Terrence Smith this week. Did another game of him. I mean, I pulled him off the list just because I feel like no matter what, there's going to be someone I'm more interested in. He just seems very okay to me. Loves to step up from the blue line for sure. Definitely a guy who loves to, try to chip in and create some offense, but not necessarily at a rate much higher than a lot of other defensemen that I've tracked in this year's draft. He's a very pass-first guy in transition, but not particularly good at it. Like, he passes the puck, just to give you an insight into the proprietary data tracked for fractalhockey.com. He passes the puck 79% of the time, moving the puck up the ice, which is a lot. And he misses 2/3 of the time. So he's icing the puck a lot. He's missing his targets a lot, and he plays on a pretty good team. He's missing on 55% of his passes in general, which is a lot for a player. He hits a lot, which is cool. But for me with Terrence Smith, it's, I've just seen other players in other leagues that I am more interested in where Terrence Smith is probably going to go, right? Like, Terrence Smith is probably going to be a guy that goes in the second round or something, and I'm going to sit there with like Alphonse Frey on my board as a top 10 guy, and he'll probably still be available, and I'll go, yeah, I'm taking this guy instead. Or who else? Maybe Badinka will still be available, maybe. Or Stein Solberg, or Daniel Stinkov, or all these guys who I think just play a much more solid game and are, I would say, better skaters than Terrence Smith, which is a strength of his, I would say. But he loves to do the bait and switch, deception thing, and all that fun stuff. But I'm just not as high on him as a lot of people for me. Curious to see what Steve Stais does at this draft. So glad Dorian is gone. Well, let me ruin your day, because all of the Ottawa Senators scouts are the same. They have not replaced any of their scouts, and Steve Stais was never a scout himself. So I will say,
they may look for different things, though. They may be asked to look for different things. So let's put the caveat there. I know what you're saying, but let's give this person a little bit more optimism, because the question they ask later, I already know my answer to, and it's kind of contradicts what they say.
I don't know. I'm just not setting the bar very high for this, because the Sens, like, it's the like, I don't know. I feel like the scouts in their own minds have what they have prioritized in their own minds. Like, maybe Steve Stais says we should look in a different direction in this direction, and who knows, right? Like, what if someone above me, if I'm a scout for an NHL team and I have my philosophy, and a scout comes to me and says, we're going to prioritize physical play now, and we got to draft guys with size. I guess I'll throw guys out there that I think are big and have possibilities of doing that. But I also would say that I'm not doing my job, right? Like, I'm saying, sure, but I think these other players are better or more useful for us. Like, I don't know. It depends on how you see the role of a scout and what you want and all that stuff. But I don't know. We'll see. I just all the scouts are the same, so all of that thinking is going to be the same. But if the direction at the top is different, then so be it. I'm really hoping the Habs end up drafting Demidov, Catton, or Lindstrom. How should I feel with Kent Hughes drafting Carter Yakimchuk instead?
However you'd normally feel, because it's perfectly acceptable.
Exactly. Yeah. And however you felt when they drafted David Reinbacher is kind of how you probably will feel again, right? Like Carter Yakimchuk is a fine hockey player. He's in the middle of a soup of a lot of players that I like about the same amount. I'm just a lot more skeptical about Yakimchuk than I've seen him as high as like third overall on some boards. And I mean, look, I've seen the highlight gifs too, man. I saw the top prospects game too. I saw the dangles. I see the hands. I see it, but he's a defenseman and the defending is a problem with him. The skating is a problem. He is, I don't know. If you pass on a Demidov and Catton and Lindstrom for him, good luck. Like I can't say it's not going to work, but God bless you. On you go. Larkin is hurt and expect Veleno. Oh, that's not a question. I believe Alex Nylander has 4 points in 5 games since getting traded.
It's more.
Possible. It's more now.
No, the person keeps updating it. It becomes more and more, and now it's 6, and he's got a hat trick. And there's a question, and the question's about what's up with him. So I don't know. I've got to watch more Alex Nylander because I haven't seen a ton of him. But do you want to take this away, Will?
Well, I was going to say the same thing. I actually didn't know he's been doing that well with Columbus. I should probably check out why or what's going on there.
Rare Dubas.
I don't know. Well, like, that's the thing. Like, Alex Nylander, I've always kind of liked, but he seems like he has the same problems as like a Kasperi Kapanen had in Toronto, which is why he's not there anymore, right? Like, there's a lot of talent, but actually putting it together in the NHL has just never happened for him. I don't know exactly why, because when I watch him, it's like, oh, okay, like you see kind of moments of Nylander doing his thing. So maybe the puck's just going in for him right now. But I don't know. I'll check him out, though, because I'm curious. What does Chychrun fetch? Here you go, AJ. What does Chychrun fetch? Sounds like he's going to be dealt by Friday.
I don't think he's getting dealt by Friday, but it's very possible. See, even the cat agrees with me, saying no.
You can hear that? Oh,
yeah,
God.
I can. I can absolutely hear that.
Well, I apologize to the audience.
Yeah, and I apologize for the chair. Anytime my chair would go back, because I'm sure that got picked up on the mic. Oh, it didn't? Okay, perfect.
No.
Anyways, I just don't think it's going to happen with Chychrun, at least at this deadline. I could see it in the offseason as they might look to potentially explore something that way. But when you think about, like, they just got him not too long ago, and he's a good piece, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and I don't think the Ottawa Senators should be in that mode of selling him off. Like, I wouldn't even sell him off in the summer. I still think there's something good there in Ottawa. It's just about putting the right pieces around it, as well as finding a good goalie. You know, because Korpisalo's come in, it's not worked, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he could make it work next year if they upgrade the blue line a little bit, like, or upgrade the forwards and change. Like, they got to change something. I don't know exactly what that is. Like, they have some good defensemen. They have some good forwards. It's about finding a style that fits this team instead of the DJ Smith style that we saw previously. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. I think they should stand pat. Obviously, with Chychrun, sell off Tarasenko, get what you can there. Kubalik hasn't generated a ton of interest, so it's like he could move, but it might be for something very small, and you may want to do it anyways. So I don't know. I just look at it, and I wouldn't make core-altering moves at this point with the Ottawa Senators. I'd stick with it. I'd just try and change the mix around them.
Fair enough. I would agree. I think that's fair. Godspeed You Black Emperor fan. Yeah, actually. I went through a Godspeed You Black Emperor phase when I was like in university, like maybe 15 years ago, which is terrifying for me to say. But
you were in university 15 years ago?
Yeah, 2008. Yeah,
oh my God.
2009 was my first. 0809 was my first year in university.
I was in third grade.
Oskiwiwi, go McMaster University, go Maroons. No, wait, that wasn't their team. They wore maroon. What was the team's name? See, this is how much we care about university sports in Canada. I can't even remember the team name of the school I went to. But yeah, I do like that band. I went through a phase of like big into like really technical metal in the high school years, and then I kind of swung the complete polar opposite direction when I discovered that there's a whole other side of this kind of thing that is very different. And so yes, I'm a fan. I haven't listened to them in a long time, but I was a big fan. I think it's because I discovered the one that everybody knows of them, Lift Your Skinny Fists or whatever it's called. I'm looking at it now. They have obnoxious album names, which I find hilarious, but that album rules.
So it is 10 o'clock, and
Yes.
we need to rapid fire these because my grandparents are about to show up. So
okay, I'll go fast. Okay,
let's go fast.
Okay, Brunicky is rising a little. Does he look like a solid defenseman? He skates well, but I have not seen much else that gives me a whole lot of hope. How exactly does the Russian league work? I was under the impression that the VHL was a step above the MHL, but we don't really see young players like Demidov there. It's because Russia's weird, but that is the second division professional league. It would be like if the NHL and the AHL and the OHL were all kind of mashed together. That's kind of the vibe. Who's the most underrated prospect this season? Why is it Herman Truff? No, it's not Herman Truff, unfortunately. As much as I love Herman, we all love Herman around here. Let's throw I don't know, Alphonse Frey out there. A lot of people were questioning how effective Gavin Brindley would be without Fantilli. Do you feel like Brindley has shown he can be a line driver this season?
He's awesome, and he always will be. So don't bet against him.
Yes. Jet Luchenko NHL comparison. I don't know. Insert third line smart puck moving center in there. I don't know. Can't think on the fly like that. David Phillips saying that he'll cook for Nipissing University. It's entirely possible. I'm half joking. Which prospects could you could potentially fall to the late rounds because they're undervalued, not because they're a long shot?
Luke Misa, baby.
Yeah, Luke Misa. Alphonse Frey is another one that it could probably be available pretty late. Teddy Stiga. Yegor Graf. I like Ole Josefsson as well. He might slip quite a bit. Maybe Noel Franzen. There's a bunch of them. We were talking about Kuzma Voronin earlier. Blah blah blah. Opinions on Alexander Suryatsky, aka the next Forsling. I mean, he's a shifty boy. He's got some skill to him. Every time I've seen Suryatsky, though, since you guys talk about him all the time, hasn't really blown my mind that much. Maybe a guy I'd take a swing on late in the draft because you can leave him in Russia for 10 years if you want. But not my first priority. But how's that, AJ? We got
that was awesome.
You
picked up the pace.
Yeah,
I didn't know Will could crank it out. I almost swore.
I like to be informative, but when push comes to shove, I can work under pressure, no problem. It's easy peasy.
Excellent.
But anyway, thank you for joining us. This was a lot of fun. As always, we are brought to you by Fanatics. You can use the link in the description or the stream window to give us a kickback on everything in the store. We're also brought to you by Puck Preps, where you can get all your NCAA and CHL prospect needs as well. We're brought to you by Fractal Hockey, which is my business for player information packages dedicated to recruiting to the NCAA in Europe, and you can get in touch with us about opportunities with that now because we've partnered with a wonderful hockey tournament in Montreal. So DM me or message info@fractalhockey.com, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. And of course, Scouching.ca, which is my own website where you can get tons of insight on draft prospects and players making their mark in the NHL and beyond. So thank you very much for joining us. Again, we have a live show this Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the trade deadline. We got lots of fun stuff planned, lots of segments, lots of fun.
Yep.
And we're gonna have a good time. So AJ, thank you again, and we'll see you on Friday.
Do I get my final thoughts? Because I can take those.
Yeah. Yes.
Bruins got lucky. Go Leafs. Go Leafs for cup. Good night, everybody.
Right. See ya.